where do you stand with like since you are a doctor with like the COVID type of situation where it kind of took over the whole world, and there's obviously a lot of things that are not told, are told. And I just want to know your perspective, especially having this different perspective that I'm even used to.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't take over the world. All it was on the news all the time. And so barely anybody that I knew ever, like during that 3 years, ever had any symptoms at all. So it was overblown. It was a propaganda show. That's all it was. And respiratory symptoms is a territorial fear conflict. So a cough and a fever, the scary new thing. It's a new thing called COVID. Like, I just cringe every time I see someone says, well, I have COVID, like today, like, just over this 2023 Christmas. Oh, well, the whole family has COVID. COVID is not a thing. It's not a thing. What are your symptoms? Oh, we all have coughs and fevers. Okay, the family experienced a territorial fear conflict. They experienced some type of threat in their territory. They didn't feel safe. Their bronchial mucosa adapted, and now it's in the healing phase. That's what it is. If you have if you also have a stuffy nose, you had a stink conflict. You said, this stinks and I'm afraid. If you also have a sore throat, you have a can't swallow conflict, stink conflict, territorial fear. So the symptoms tell us what the person experienced. And so the whole absolute ridiculous scamdemic charade was all about amplifying fear and selling an injection. And that's what it was all about. I mean, still is about. It never was about some new form of an illness. It's always the same. We just have to look at the symptoms that the person is expressing and trace it back to an experience in their life of what happened that caused them to feel afraid. And it's a perfect self-fulfilling prophecy, because as soon as you get people afraid of a scary new particle, they feel fear in their territory. They don't know. Are you safe? Did you get the shot? Are you wearing a mask? Was this doorknob disinfected? Was this clean? Was that, you're afraid environment. And that is this self-fulfilling prophecy of I'm afraid, that causes my bronchial mucosa to widen. And then I get home and I finally feel safe and I go, oh gosh, I'm coughing. Oh no, I must have got it. Somebody must not have been vaccinated. Someone must not have been wearing a mask. That little particle must know you felt a specific experience of fear and uncertainty in your territory, and it caused a specific adaptation in your body. And it's nothing novel, it's nothing new, it's nothing scary. But if you think it's scary and novel and new, and you go to the doctor and they say you have to quarantine, you can't be around your family, and you might get hospitalized, that's the absolute worst thing you can do, because now you're feeling isolated. And anytime, and this is how this got blown into such a huge, terrible thing with people, the hospital wards are just full of these people and are being intubated and all, what they did was they freaked people out.
Oh, yeah.
And then they people out about having symptoms, and then they isolated them from their families, which caused them to hold on to water. So that's another biological program of the kidney collecting tubules. When you feel isolated, abandoned, kicked out, rejected, like a refugee when you're not at home, your kidney collecting tubules shut off and no fluid leaves your system. And the fluid goes to any area that's in healing. So it goes to the lungs, and it makes it even harder to breathe. And they say, we have to keep these people isolated away from their families. And then they die in fear because of the fear that was sold to them on the TV about, stay away from people, 6 feet, da-da-da-da. And you have to isolate. Both of those things together, lung adaptation and fluid retention, can lead to getting to the point where you can't breathe, And so it's the last 3 years has been wonderful, because tons of people have learned about, this other model, simply because they're like, this doesn't make sense, but so many people are still just brainwashed and still believe the old model.
Yeah, that is so interesting because I remember when it first happened, I just moved out into my own place. So I was completely alone, and the whole world was going crazy and shutting down and everything. And I remember a couple times freaked out a little bit, and I would start to be I'm oh man, I'm damn, did I get it? And I'm dude, relax. And I started to just try to erase my panic, and then it would go away. But it's funny how I know my body, and it would just when I freaked out, I'd have these teeny weeny symptoms, and I could see the snowball starting to want to form, and then I would just kind of shut it off and it'll go away. So it's just funny how these things that we perceive can actually just change our physiology like in an instant.
Yeah, you can adapt to something. You can have like a really just quick, like conflict, fear, and then have one little cough, But if you stay in it for longer and longer, if you were, in it for an hour, in it for a few days, feeling really worried, people will go, to family gatherings and they're like, and then they leave the family gathering, they breathe a sigh of relief, and then they start coughing. And it's like, you were in fear. You were in fear while you were there the whole time, and now you're in healing. A lot of people, kids, when they go to family holiday parties and they come home and they're, and they're, quote, sick. Oh, we caught it from someone. No, you were in a different foreign environment. Maybe there are people there the kids had never met before. And so always pull the thread. It's never about a germ that jumps from one person to another. If it was about germs jumping from one person to another, this is actually a quote from VJ Palmer. He's a founder of chiropractic, that if the germ theory were true, no one would be alive to believe it. Because if germs actually made people sick, everybody would have them and everyone would be dead. And so we know that is not how it works. And it is about individual experience, something that goes on with one person that didn't go on with another. Someone else didn't get symptoms and someone did. Someone had a conflict and someone didn't.
Wow. That's beautiful. I don't know if you've seen in the news lately that like the World Economic Forum is it the WHO, the World Health Organization, is like prepping for another pandemic. Have you seen that? Like it's like they call it Disease X or something like that. But in this perspective, to anybody who's listening here, how can they better protect themselves? Because it seems like it's very hard to believe, and it's unbelievable that people would have such nefarious and evil plans for whatever reason. How could they better, protect themselves in a world where, people seem to want to like give them illnesses?
Well, yeah, I mean, they do want to reduce the population. It's kind of, it kind of makes sense from their perspective. They think that there's too many people, and it's like, okay, so we'll create all of this fear. We'll give these, it's just, yes, I do think that there is some behind the scenes weirdness happening. But, a person who's unafraid, a person who knows this map is no longer vulnerable to disease X. You're no longer vulnerable to some scary, mysterious pandemic that's on the next horizon, because we know where a fever comes from, where a cough comes from, where a stuffy nose comes from, where all of these symptoms come from. You've seen it in your own experience. You've connected those dots before. You're not afraid. You're not concerned. And so you're not even aware of things like that because you're focused on real life. You're returning to a natural order. You're probably out in nature, growing your own food and taking care of your own chickens or whatever. Like, you're just not concerned with that. That's really the key, is make your life so that you're not vulnerable to and not interested in what some, mystery organization is predicting that is going to happen. That's believing that your power lies outside of you, and what the WHO or the WEF or the W whoever is going to be doing, or what their nefarious motives might be. Are you that not in control of your life that they're going to determine your outcomes? That's either true or it isn't. And it's true for a lot of people. Their outcomes are determined by what's on the news. What is disease X? Because they are not in their own power. They are kind of zombies. They're not awake to the reality that their experience comes from them. Their health comes from them. It doesn't come from other people. It doesn't come from germs. It doesn't come outside of me. And so, not everyone's going to wake up to that. Some people are fine being kind of slaves to the system. And some people are going to wake up and have woken up. And, for those who haven't, that's kind of interesting. Like, will they ever? I don't know. Will they find this podcast and be intrigued and, completely overhaul their belief system? Maybe, it's definitely possible. But the only way to protect yourself from gobbledygook made up diseases is to know exactly how your tissues function.
Yeah. Beautiful. If you believe more constructive information like this should be out there for people to know, please leave a like on this video. And if you're a person who's into self-development in all aspects of their life, please subscribe, because that is what we do here at Good Demand. Keep demanding good things. And if you haven't bought a pair of our Good Night Blue Blockers and you use a phone at night or an iPad or TV at night, please consider buying a pair of these. They're beautiful and they work so well and they help support our growth.